kick us off, Dave?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're a little bit late getting started. Thanks for coming, everybody. Did everybody get a raffle ticket for the door prizes for later? If not, let us know and we'll get you a ticket.
Everybody's got one, I think, come in, I think.
Awesome. Hey, welcome to the June meeting. We appreciate everybody being here. See some faces we've seen before. Glad you're here. There's just a little bit of club business. If we can hit that, first of all, as we talked about it in the last meetings, coming up on June 25th, Saturday, are a couple of items. One is Catch a Cure, which is a tournament that's up at Starvation. You can either fish the bass tournament side of it or the walleye tournament side of it, or both. Our club helps support that tournament. We're not actually a sponsor, but we support it. And every year we send a club member up there to fish the tournament. The club pays the entry fee for the walleye portion for these guys that are going up. So Benjamin Allen, who has won tournaments up there before, won the Starvation Classic last year, will be fishing that for us. In addition to that, we're making a couple $100 donation to the Catch a Cure. Now, Catch a Cure, if you're not familiar with it, is a benefit. What, pardon?
Camp Kobe.
Yes, it's a benefit for Camp Kobe, which is a summer camp for children with cancer. Super organization. So we are making a contribution that goes into buying raffle tickets, and there will be some gear that we hope that we win as a club, which goes into a pool, and we'll probably end up giving it away along with the things that Shields donates in some of our upcoming events. By the way, we are super grateful for Shields allowing us to use this space and for the donations that they make of gear that is given away. Please shop Shields on your way out and make a point of coming here. Super good people. Yeah. Okay, so Benjamin Allen again is fishing Catch a Cure Saturday the 25th. Cast for Kids, yes.
We're going to be fishing in that as well, and we haven't done it before, so we have a few questions. Have you done it? Have you?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And we can put you in touch with Ben Allen if you want.
Yeah, he's great. He'll show you the ropes.
He's the one that did the seminar a couple months ago.
He's the one that did jigging, yeah.
That's right. His whole presentation is all I know about starvation, and so.
Absolutely. We can put you in touch with Ben.
Thanks.
Now, are you going to be able to be up there? There is like a check-in meeting on Friday.
We're going up on Friday morning early, so
awesome.
We'll be up there.
So you can fish a little while,
yeah.
Try some stuff out. Yeah, I will text Ben and let him know there's somebody who would like to talk with him, and I'll give him his permission to give his contact information to you.
Okay.
And we can get you in touch.
So the couple of questions that I have, they refer, the only thing I've seen on it is it refers to the Walleye Classic rules. The very first rule is you have to be over 16 to fish it. He is not. I can't imagine in a charity tournament that they would have that rule. I mean, we fish tournaments all the time, and I've never even seen that rule, but.
I doubt, now, the Classic, I know they would enforce that.
They wouldn't, or what?
They would. The Classic, which happens in September, I'm sure they would because it's big money. Right on the website for Catch a Cure, they point out that, yes, they do a payout for the winners. However, it's traditional that the winners then donate their winnings back to Camp Kobe, which is a really nice thing.
So do you need somebody, or are you worried about if you?
Well, if I can't fish with him, I probably won't fish in it. But I don't know where to find out more information about that. Or
We can. Ben might. No, I doubt. You look older than that.
I know.
I don't think. No one's going to card you.
Don't ask, don't tell.
This is being recorded, right?
Yeah. We'll edit this out.
No. We'll edit this out. I think you're safe.
Okay. And then what is the red, white, and blue in that? It's a side pot.
Yeah, it's like a side pot.
I don't even know what is it for.
I don't know. Ben would be able to tell you. He knows all the pots, and he studies the tournament, so he knows all the rules. He probably read the rule book. So, there's probably some loophole he could probably tell you about or something.
As soon as I sit down from this, I'll text Ben and we'll see. In fact, I may step back and give him a call.
Perfect.
But yeah, we can get you hooked up.
All right.
And actually, this is a really fun one to do. If you're gonna fish a tournament with real tournament rules, this is a fun one to do.
Can you still register for it or no?
I'm sorry?
Is registration over?
No, I think you can still register. In fact, I think you can register the day of.
That's what I read as well. That's what we're planning on doing, just in case I find out we can.
What's the fee?
Yeah.
125.
It's
And then they
125 for
have,
the walleye side,
they have
125
big
for the
fish
bass side.
side, and then red, white, and blue thing, which I don't even know what you're fishing for in that.
So the red, white, and blue is all, so what they do is they grab the majority, well, so they grab everyone and they divide it by 3. And so you're gonna be a red team, this team will be a blue team, this team will be a white team. What they'll do is white team competes against white team, so whoever has a top pot for white team, now you get put in the money, and then same thing for red team, and same thing for blue team. And then I think they might even do it where whoever has a top on each color, you'll get a payout just for being the top of your whatever color you're at. What they'll do at the very end is they might do it at this tournament where whoever has the highest overall throughout all 3, which is pretty much overall winner, will win an extra prize or something like that.
Before the night is over, you want to try to catch some of us. Have you fished starvation much?
We fished it last weekend.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Then we can grab a map and go Google Earth, and we can point out some of our favorite places to walleye fishing. That it might help you. Can't hurt you.
That'd be
Awesome.
great. We went in pretty blind last week.
All right.
So.
Same Saturday is Cast for Kids. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. It takes differently abled children fishing. So often it's kids with learning disabilities, Down syndrome, and you take the kid and their parent usually. It's at Soldier Creek. It's on the same day. It's a great thing to do. You take them out and fish for about 3 hours and come back and have lunch with them. I put in a call today to find out if they're still needing boat captains. The lady will let me know on Thursday or Friday of this week if we need boat captains. So if they do need boat captains, we'll get an email out to the group to just say, hey, here's the link. You can still register. You can still go where you want to go. One thing I noticed is that I got an email that looked like it was coming from a member of our club. And the email said, urgent, here's the link of that document you asked for. Please click it as soon as you can. If anybody that's on our mailing list gets an email like that, don't open it, don't click it. That's a typical, somebody out there, a bad guy has seen our email traffic flowing, grabbed an email address, spoofed it, and made it look like it was coming from one of us. We'll never do that to you. We won't send out, here, click this link. I promise you, never will happen. So guard yourself and don't click on anything like that. Quite often we try to get together as a group and go fishing somewhere. This coming weekend would be when we would normally do it, the first weekend after the club meeting. The weather this weekend looks really bad. Friday, super windy, Saturday, rain. So there's a chance we may be trying to get a couple of guys together with boats that have boats and want to go maybe up to Deer Creek on the same day, the 25th, in the morning, and fish until the wave runners drive us off the lake, or we go up into Wallsburg Bay, or until the wind comes up, which is usually midday. So there's a chance, we don't know for sure, but we'll, again, if that happens, that we get some guys together that want to go, we'll get an email out on that, okay?
That'd be fun.
Pardon?
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Well, the 3 is pretty bad at your creek.
The last time we went up to Willard, I think there were 3 boats, that were together, and we were just having a good time up there. And that's the thing I really love about the club. I get a phone call mid-morning, hey, we're over at this place, and we're picking up smallmouth like crazy. And somebody else is calling and saying, hey, we're over here, and we haven't done much. Everybody's sharing information, and that's really enjoyable. I think that's a little bit unique in this style of club.
It's not a competition, it's something.
Yeah, so we help each other. So, it's a lot of fun if we can get 2 or 3 boats going. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, a question on the catch, cure, and cast for kids.
Sure.
You mentioned that you're making donations. Are you making those out of the dues that you received, or are you looking for donations?
No, the donations were made out of the budget that came in with dues.
Yeah, that's our biggest yearly expenses. That's usually what it goes towards.
So, yeah.
Are you looking for more donations, or you feel you're good?
They will accept any donations, but if you want to donate to Camp, is it Hobie or Kobe?
Camp Hobie.
Camp Hobie. If you want to donate, you can Google that and find the Catch a Cure website, and there is a place where you can make a donation.
And would there be any advantage to the club in
You can't hold your own for
any
a
contribution
contribution.
come through the club?
Not really.
Doesn't really?
Not really. We already help support them with.
They sent us a Christmas card.
Okay. there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. But no, it's a wonderful thing. If you want to donate that, more power to you, thanks. All right, I think that's it for club business. Dale, I don't think we're gonna go over too much on the finances tonight. We'll probably hit that next meeting if that's okay. And we'll turn the time on over to Badger, who's gonna talk about Deer Creek.
Okay. So I brought a lot of my junk. I'm usually a pretty high-tech guy, but I don't have any slides or anything, so I just have some of the videos that I've taken at Deer Creek, and then I'll show you some of the gear that I use. Who's fished Deer Creek? Who fishes Deer Creek regularly? How do you guys feel you do for walleye? Because that's what I target.
Inconsistent.
Inconsistent, yeah. How about rainbow?
Easy.
Rainbow's a little bit easier.
Yeah, they commit suicide.
What'd you say?
The rainbows commit suicide.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they'll bite on just about anything. But there's also crappie and smallmouth there too, so you can catch a lot of different things, and brown trout. In one of these videos, we kind of caught a little bit of everything, and the whole time we were trolling for walleye. So what I'm going to focus on is walleye techniques, because walleye has produced every kind of fish for me at Deer Creek. And I'll kind of tell you how I do it. I go pretty slow. First of all, the places where I go for trolling. Depth, I usually want to be about 20 to 30 feet. If I'm going deeper than 30 feet, it's pretty rare that I'll catch anything. I've caught stuff on there, but just like percentage-wise, 20 to 30 feet, even shallower. Sometimes I'll take my planer boards that are out, and I'll go right up against the shore, and I'll pick up things that way. And that's how I get bycatch, too. That's how I'll get some bass and some black crappie sometimes and stuff like that. But usually about 20 to 30 feet. So usually I'm going up north by Charleston Bay. That's where the inlet is. And that's also where there's some cover. So if you're in the weed side, not always the funnest place to troll. So I usually stay on the west side. East side, it gets shallow very gradually, and there's a lot of vegetation over there. So it's a great place to jig fish. But if you're trolling, usually you want to stay on the rocky side of things or the sandy side of things, which is more on the west side. So usually where I go is a little bit past, I go past where the island is, if you know where the island is. And I'll show you guys some of this on the map too. In fact, I'll just pull it up on Google Maps real quick.
Do you find the vegetation side better for walleye than the rocky side?
Ben's all about that side. Ben is a jig fisherman. He's the one that did jig fishing for our walleye seminar, and he loves casting crankbaits and swim baits into the brush over there. He does really well, and that's honestly how you'll probably catch bigger walleye. So the bigger walleye that are ambush predators and stuff like that, there's some bigger ones over there. But consistently, I catch more on the west side. And I'm usually fishing with kids, so a lot of my techniques are geared towards kids. That's one of the reasons I troll, because I don't have to get hooks, flying everywhere.
And you say Ben gave a seminar on that recently, or?
Just on jigging, yeah. We'll post this on Facebook as well. But then we have a YouTube channel, and we did a walleye fishing seminar, and he did specifically techniques on jigging.
Was that the one in March, or was that
Yes.
your recent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of
Yeah,
them.
March 24th.
So he talks about jigging, kind of the rods that he uses and some of the different lures that he uses. But when he fishes Deer Creek, that's more where he goes on that side. He likes to stay pretty shallow. He likes to stay a lot more shallow. He's like 20 feet deepest. He likes to be like 12 feet sometimes, he even told me. So when last time we went and I took him to where I catch, he's like, I never fished this deep. It's like 30 feet, but we did catch a pretty good walleye that week. Let me pull up Deer Creek.
What time of day do you find that are better for walleye? Cloudy days, sunny days, or does it matter?
Lunar calendar. follow the lunar calendar, because if they're feeding at night because they can see because of the moon, then their eating pattern shifts a little bit. Because I'm just kind of, I set my poles and I relax because fishing is like a decompression time for me. Ben's like, man, that guy, he's switching something out every 5 minutes. That's not me. I'm a chill fisherman. I like to set my poles. I like to kind of keep trying the same thing. I won't switch things up for like, if I haven't caught something for 20, 30 minutes, then maybe I'll change something up. But I usually keep pretty consistent because I know that the bite will change and then that will come. So as long as I'm locating fish and stuff, then I can pick them up almost every time.
May I ask a follow-up on that? We're at a full moon right now. So some people say not good to fish full moons unless you're doing it at night because they feed at night, so they're not active the next day. Anybody have an opinion on that? Or
night fishing is really good, so just think about their eating cycle.
I went to the gorge and I caught like 15 kokanee on a full moon once. I mean, it's not walleye, but I mean,
so could be a fisherman's tale.
I think a little bit of both. I think it does affect the fishing a little bit, but.
And if I might, Badger,
Yeah.
we were up there last Friday, again, mostly full moon, and by about 7 p.m., the bite turned on, and we were catching walleye consistently and quickly on the west side where he was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, usually when the sun starts to drop, almost any day, that's a good time. Just right when the sun's starting to drop. Same with when the sun's
Yeah,
first
quite
coming
often,
up.
early, first light and last light is usually okay.
Okay.
If they've been feeding all night, first light might not be as good.
Yeah, so like mid-afternoon is actually a decent
Yeah.
time when so if it's been pretty full moon, sometimes I won't get my first fish until 10. And I usually try to get off the water by 11:30 because I'm just about to bark from all the wake boats and stuff and tip us over. But yeah, so where I go, if I pull this up. So this is, how do I move this? There we go. So here, I usually go right up about, we've got a little island here. So this is where the other marina is. And the south marina, I usually go in the south marina just because there's more lawn tracks and I don't have to compete with it. So I'd rather just drive further. But I almost always just go right up to Charleston Bay. That's the first place I go. If I'm targeting walleye, and I usually will stay up in like this quarter right here, just right up in there. And I'm usually
Do you find yourself past where the bridge would be for walleyes, or do you go before the bridge?
past where the bridge is.
So you know the river, there's a bridge?
Probably south,
Oh.
where the bridge crosses over where the river comes in.
Yeah, the river comes in here, so I'm probably just a little bit south.
Okay.
So the place I kind of start off is usually in this bend here. There's like a little bend here. And there's actually, so the old river bottom comes and it's kind of runs along here, and I will zigzag back and forward. And what I found is, so I found that I kept catching fish on that river bottom, but then I lined myself up with the river bottom. I'm like, well, I'm going to stay on the river bottom. I'm going north and south to that river bottom, and I wasn't catching any fish. Well, walleye are ambush predators, so what they wanted to do was sit in the bottom, have me drag it over parallel, and then they come up and get it. And then if I just kept zigzagging like that, back and forth, almost every time I go over that, I'd usually get something, or I'd at least get a bite. You know, I'd have a chance at it. So what I found is I'd kind of S-turn all around there, but it gets pretty busy, you know, on a Saturday. So weekdays, you can make it happen. Go there on a weekday, because Saturday there are a lot of $200,000 boats that are creating wakes like this high.
And what I find out too is if you go like in the wind go with the wind picked up sometimes, because the wind will push everybody off the lake.
Yeah.
And then when you stay, as soon as the wind comes, it's a great time.
Yeah, and when it's windy, when they call it the walleye chop, when it's a little bit choppy, sometimes that's when they really get excited. They get oxygenated, they get a little bit more active, they get hungry, and they start to feed. So that's kind of the area I go. I'll just show you some other areas where I go for specific fishing. So I do like to go down by the dam, over kind of down in here for like brown trout, and I've got some really good brown trout. And they usually brown trout are different. They're just sitting there. They just stay there. So what I usually do is I'll kind of troll along here. I've never gotten anything trolling.
How deep
But
is
on
the
mark,
brown?
about 45, and they'll sit there, and they're good sized brown trout. and I've caught a couple that way. In fact, the first time I've always had just really cheap sonar. Like I had, like it looked like 8-bit Tetris, like black and white, old Hummingbird. That's what came with my boat. I just barely upgraded, and I was learning how to do it. And so it was the first time I ever really like marked a fish, and then came back to that spot, and I sat right on top of it and pulled up 2 brown trout, and I thought it was the best thing in the world. But yeah, I usually will mark fish and then come back that same way, and then try vertical jigging from there. But as far as the trolling, I'm usually up here for walleye. Rainbow you can catch anywhere. Like you can troll pretty much right in the middle. You can troll up and down. And if it gets really windy, I'll even just go here in Wallsburg area because it's more protected.
There's a lot of bass in there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of bass in there too.
And you'll find bass just about everywhere along the shoreline.
Really?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
You have to watch out for paddle boarders. There's a lot of paddle boarders around there in the summer, but it is nice and protected. And actually, we call it the butt crack. There's a hill right there as you're going in on this side, and I don't know if I can do satellite. See there, you can see the butt crack. But right here where that is, usually if I'm going same thing parallel, that goes all the way down to the bottom, and I can go over that and usually pick up some rainbow. And I'm usually using kokanee gear when I'm targeting rainbow.
How's the water level around?
What did you
The
say?
water level?
Very high.
It's higher than I've seen in a while.
It's within
It's kind of throwing me off,
about 2 to
honestly.
3 feet of max.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
places I'm usually 20, I'm at 30 feet right now.
Awesome.
So it's pretty high right now for other reservoirs. And I think it's because it's culinary water.
And water temps are about 66, so the bass are starting to get active.
Awesome.
Yeah, and bass are a lot higher up. So yeah, I'm mostly up here in Charleston, this whole area, and I pretty much kind of create a triangle up here and just kind of go back and forward and then do some zigzag patterns up and down here. So that's kind of where I go. And a lot of other guys, I've heard a lot of guys really like the island here. I just go where I know first, and usually I pick up on something.
I have a buddy of mine that does spear fishing, and he says he swears on the island, this side of the island, the bottom side,
The bottom side.
16 feet from the island is where there's a lot of big walleye. I've never been successful at getting them, but that's where he says they're at.
Yeah, well, I'll have to try it. So I've kind of got my spot, and it was one of the first places that I kind of like, wait, this is 3 times I've gotten fish here. I think I might be getting a hang of it now. So that's kind of my go-to. But I'll kind of show you guys what I use. I know it's kind of weird to start with your rod holder, but this is probably one of the things that's helped me with fish a lot is hooking up, because I was having a really hard time because I like to use slow death rigs, so I only got 1 hook usually. But being able to, so this one pulls up, so I used to have to pull out like this, and when I've got kids and we're running around with nets and I've got to deal with planer boards and stuff sometimes too, being able to pull up and pull that rod holder out sometimes gets that hook set better than if it's just out. So I really like this one. And I haven't been able to find it anywhere but Cabela's. I don't know if they're made by Scotty, but they're like branded Bass Pro Shops. But so I usually just set them in the rod holders. And then my go-to, these are all ones I've already bought, and you can kind of like pass this around and look what they look like. But these are the slow death rigs. These ones are Smile blades, and these are the colors I like to use at Deer Creek. And then this one is kind of like a little propeller. It's a butterfly blade. And if you look at this one's called a super death rig, and it's got a bigger kink in it than these ones. But I like these slow death rigs because they twirl your worm. So when you feed your worm on there and you feed it over the kink, once you get that in the water, it's going to twirl that worm really slow, and it drives the fish nuts. It's just, I've caught things more consistently on that than anything
How
else.
fast can you go when you pull those?
Super slow. That's the nice thing. You can call them super slow death rigs. So you can go as slow as 0.5, but I usually start trolling at about 0.9. That's usually where I start, is 0.9. You were going pretty slow the other day. How slow were you going?
Anywhere from 0.6 to about 1.
Yeah, so that was the hardest part for me. When I first started, was getting my boat to slow down, because I had old trolling motors, so I didn't know how fast I was going. And so I literally pulled up a GPS app on my phone, and I'm going, oh, well, that's over 1, that's too high. And then it'd say 0.5, and I'd go, well, that's too low. And then it would fluctuate between, and I'd go, okay, let's try this. And that's when I first started catching fish. That's before I had it. So you don't have to have all the fancy technology. You just have to get at the right speed, and you got to have the right presentation, right? That's the biggest thing. So I started out, like I said, with a fish finder that basically just went beep, 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 beep. It was like more like it sounded like someone was having heart palpitations in the hospital. And then the next thing that helped me was figuring out the bottom bouncers. So I'm going to show you 2 different bottom bouncers, and one of these really ticks me off, so I don't want you to buy them because they're terrible. So when you get a bottom bouncer, I like these some of the guys use the stick ones with that are just a stick. It kind of slides up and down. I use these ones. But look at that. See how that's not connected at the top? That will drive you freaking insane, because this will slide off, and when you're fighting the fish, it's gonna bring up your everything, and it's gonna be hanging by this, and it just gets caught up. It's so annoying. I don't know why anybody would want that. So I always make sure, other than the time I bought that one, to get one that's pinched like that, so it'll be closed off. So sometimes it'll be like an actual swivel loop or something like that, and sometimes it'll just be pinched. But make sure that it's closed, because that will drive you insane. Because what I usually do with most of mine is I'll usually angle them up a little bit like that, so that when I'm dragging it, it holds it as high as possible, because usually it's not going to be like this. Usually it's going to be about like this. So that gives it just a little bit more height. And what this is doing, I'll kind of rig this up with how I usually do it. I'll talk poles in a second what I do. So this isn't anything too super sexy. This is a spinning reel, and this has got braid with a fluorocarbon leader. So I use this for jigging and stuff too. And I have a swivel on the end, and I'm clipping right there to the middle. And so now you see, if you have that, look what happens. Oh man, this just makes me so mad. The trip that I didn't have any of these good ones, I had to be careful with my kids in the book, because I wanted to say bad words. But this one, see, look, this is going to be all over the place, and it's going to go. You're going to be like this, and and it's going to tangle up with your other line, and yeah, Dave.
You can fix that. You can either take a little bit of aquarium tubing and cut it off and slip it down over that, or if you fish for bass and have like wacky rig O-rings, you could wrap an O-ring around that, and it'll keep that line up on that bend. But yeah, it takes some fixing to make those.
I also just like pinch it together, but then it just doesn't give me the angle.
What size weight do you use on those?
So most of the time, this is what I'm using. It's what is this, like a quarter or half ounce is all. If I'll go, so this one's 2.5. This is like, so, and I'll kind of explain what I use the different weights for it. But this is your basic setup. You're going to have your bottom bouncer clipped on like this, and it's going to be dragging like this. So you're going to be trolling. It's going to be going like this. It's going to be hitting rocks. And the nice thing is it's just going to keep bouncing up and down like this. And sometimes those wake boats actually will give you a little action. That's when you get hit too, because you'll be going like this, and it'll be popping this up off the ground sometimes. But then this bottom bouncer, this is the only way to keep, I found to not have them tangled all over the place, is have a little Lindy rig like this. And I've got a ton of these, and I usually make sure I have loops in them already so that I can hurry and switch them out. But I usually just keep the full length that it comes with in the thing. I usually don't go too crazy. That's about how long it needs to be. And I usually, if it doesn't already have a loop in there, I'll put a loop in there. And then this will just go right here on the back side of this. So that's it. That's your walleye machine here. And so this is going to be pulling it like this, and this is going to be kind of floating back behind it, and it's going to keep it almost exactly a foot off the bottom the whole time that you're there.
Ben mentioned he likes to go 18 inches, 24 inches to avoid hookups. But can you say there's a difference in leader length and catching fish?
I haven't noticed any. Maybe it's possible. I mean, that guy's super analytical. He probably has a spreadsheet. But
well, he only did it to avoid hookups or snags.
snags.
Yeah.
So I usually keep it pretty short for that same reason, because if I do hook a fish, usually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop my boat and make sure I can reel that fish in, and I usually won't keep going. And once this dies down, if it's really long, I have a bigger chance of wrapping up. So I haven't found a need to go longer than that, and I usually just buy mine. I'm not making my own, so I haven't found any need to. And then this
No
one,
advantage with the pencil walker versus what you've got there.
well, Dave really likes the pencil walker because it can slide. And so if it does get hung up, it can slide one way or the other, and it can go up or down too inside that.
That's what I put my line through, and
Yeah, because it has a little
then
slide bit.
when it goes on this, a swivel.
How about some of those that are not using those?
Yeah, I looked for these at Shields, I didn't see them, but they have another kind here at Shields that you can get.
So what I will say about the crawler harnesses,
Thank you.
the crawler harnesses I've always had the best luck with, and maybe this is because I let out a little too much line, but they usually have a float on them actually, or I blow up the worm. So I had one. I was gonna bring one in. So I actually ran out of them because.
When you say too much line, how much line do you put out to the creek?
So usually what I do is I'll start with 2 rods and I'll just drop them straight down while I'm stopped. And I just let them hit the bottom, and then I'll put them in my rod holders, and then I'll let out just a little bit more line on those 2. Because those 2 will just be right there. So usually if I'm going, I can feel how heavy it is. And that's actually why I use like a high vis line like this, because what I like to do is when you're moving and you have to reset them, the nice thing about having the high visibility line, I might have to take some out because I just put the meter on this. But with this high vis line, I usually am letting the bottom bouncer take all the weight out. And then what I can do is this is sitting on top of the water. Well, it's hard to see here. Maybe you can see it more here on the ground. But what I'll do is I'll let it out, and I'll just let a lot of water, or a lot of it sit on top of the water so I can watch if it's going down. So if I give it a ton of slack, I can see that it's still falling, and even though I'm going away, I can kind of watch it. And then right when I see it bounce, I'll slam it shut. And then any extra little bit of drag, I just leave in there, because the movement is going to keep it, it's going to end up taking it at an angle anyway. So that's usually how I do it. And then a lot of times if we've gotten deeper, that's the other thing, is as you're going, you're going to hit different depths. So if you notice you're going a little bit deeper, drop your line more, because then what's going to be happening is this is floating up off the bottom like this, because you're just dragging it at an angle and it's not touching the bottom. So when I first started bottom bouncing, that's actually why I was using my kokanee rods for walleye, because I could see really easy. And I don't necessarily recommend this forever, but as you're getting to know it, I can see really easy, because look at the tip of this thing. I mean, this thing is just like super, super light, so I can watch every little dip, every time it went up and down. And honestly, that parabolic bend that it does, I think it kind of helped a little bit. It gives a little spring in there, and so it just kind of moves it up and down vertically a little bit too. So I use these for everything. This is
Those good routes, I have a couple of those.
yeah, this is a pretty cheap, it's like a $35 Eagle claw, and it works great for everything. And I use that for trolling first. Now I like using these just because I feel like I can do a better hookup when I'm fighting a walleye, or a bigger walleye, or if I get a bass or something. These things are so squirrely with kids, and it's so long that you're trying to pull in a fish and they're holding it out here. So I usually just stick with this. And this is an ugly stick of wheat, so it's got a little bit more backbone to it than a regular. But honestly, your lines, when you're trolling, that's why trolling is a poor man's game, because you don't have to have super expensive jigs or anything like that. You're basically dragging line.
And
So-
mono, I know a lot of people move into braid. Do you think mono is just as good? Or do you feel like it's too stretchy on a hookup? What do you think?
I put mono on this, and I haven't changed this for probably 5 years. It's really thick mono. So the thing when you're trolling, you can put really heavy line on. That's what I use for a long time. But I went to braid, and the reason is a lot of it was just for the high visibility, honestly. So when I'm watching it, I can see what's happening with my line, and it's easier to drop, because I don't use line counters when I'm walleye fishing, so I can see what my line's doing a little bit more. That's mostly it. And also, if I'm about to cross, I can see things out there. I wear glasses, so I don't see things super well. But mostly, and then just castability. I just got into braid, man. I just figured it out this past year. Before I was like, man, I'm just gonna spend money on a braid. That stuff's so expensive. And I tried it first time. I'm like, my cast improved like 3 times what it used to be. So, yeah, just more money. But you don't need it. You don't need it, but gosh, it is nice. So I do braid with fluoro now for everything, for jigging and for. I'm not a real specialist guy. I don't have like a jigging rod and a trolling rod and everything else rod, so I kind of use some of the same stuff. Then the other thing I use is crankbaits. A lot of crankbaits. So these usually catch bigger walleye. When I'm at Deer Creek, I usually use bottom mounters more. I have more success with that. But crankbaits are really great. I use these more at Willard because they catch the white bat or the wipers. And for some reason, that jerkbait right there has caught fish almost every single time I've gone somewhere. I've caught rainbow trout, I've caught walleye, and it's a jerkbait. It's not even I don't know. It was some random thing I got at Lake Powell one time, and then I wore the crap out of it, and then finally found some, so I bought like 5 of them. But this works great.
Silver, is it?
It's called Bud, is the color. It's a Rapallo Shadow Wrap Deep 9 is the lure that it is. And it only dives down about 10 feet, so sometimes I'll put like a weight in front of it or something like that to get it even lower. But at Willard, that's exactly where you want, is 10 feet, so that gets right to the bottom. And then a lot of these are a lot cheaper. The flicker shads, use a lot of those. And I don't do quite as well with these as I do with crawler harnesses. So you'll usually see me doing crawler harnesses more, but if I can get the color right, it's because usually it's the color. And I know gold almost always works, and I know chartreuse almost always works at Deer Creek, but Willard, man, it's all over the place. I'll get reports from some of the guys, and then it'll be red one day and then purple another day, and I don't know. That place takes me down a little bit. Plus, it's not as pretty, and there's lots of bugs. So that's why I go to Deer Creek, is because Deer Creek's a lot prettier. Problem is, everybody else thinks so
better
too.
body of water to fish for walleye, Deer Creek or Starvation?
It depends what kind of walleye you want. So starvation, you can catch dinks all day long. That's why they increased the limit to 10, because there's so many little ones.
I think it's well over 9.
And night fishing for walleye there is super fun. We usually do a night fishing there, and we just jig, put out a green light. I mean, you can catch as many walleye as you can, just all over. Like if you put a green light up and it's not full moon, you'll catch walleye. It's just like a moon eye jig and a worm, and it's super fun.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's super fun. And if you go at night, technically you can get 2 limits, so you can get 20 fish because you're going over midnight. So if you let them know that that's what you're doing, and I have on video DWR telling us that we could do that. So just if you ever get hassled, just let me know and I'll send you the tape. But they told us, yeah, that's not a problem, but they want to get all the dinks out. So I highly encourage you, if you go to starvation, put the big ones back. We were trying to grow the fish there. The tournaments kind of suck right now because they can't catch. There's not a lot of big fish, but dinks all day long, they taste just as good, if not better than the big ones. So, where are we at with time? I think.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm new at this. Been trying it here the last several weeks. Caught a few, but it's hard for me to determine the bite when I'm using the smile blades, and I'm going slow, like 0.4. But I have a hard time determining the bite. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing the walleye sweep. Nothing there. How do you determine that bite?
That's a good question. So, if I'm going off my planer boards, I have, first of all, my flags are set to like the lightest settings, so they'll move even at the littlest bit. And what I usually do is I'll just pull it out and I'll do that walleye drag with my planer board, and if the flag doesn't just pop right down, I know there's nothing on it. And so I just set it right back in the holder. With the other ones, I can almost always see a dance. I'll see a dance, because if you're moving, I would try going a little bit faster than the 0.5. I'd try starting at 0.9, because 0.9, if you get a bite, usually the hook will be set by the trolling anyway. And so usually when you're sweeping, that's why you're not gonna, bass fisherman on the other side of the boat kind of pull. You're just gonna sweep because it's probably already set. You're just making sure that it's past the barb. What? Barb. Yeah, barb.
So a little faster.
And honestly, the walleye aren't gonna you're not gonna see your pole going all over. That's not my experience.
Right.
If you're jigging, yeah, it's a good fight. But usually walleye, they just kind of turn sideways and drag in like a piece of log. So
That's what I found. Right.
that's what I've found. If they're bigger, sometimes they'll swim down when they get closer to the boat or something like that. But yeah, usually the bite's pretty it goes down and then it just kind of drags. It's like you're dragging a piece of wood sometimes. Yeah, but that's why I usually get something with a pretty sensitive tip. So even these ones have a pretty, I can watch the tip. So the nice thing is I usually have 2 spotters too, so my kids are always like, dad, One other thing I was just going to tell you about walleye fishing that's helped me a lot is I did it for entertainment before. You saw I had a lot of videos. I've learned so much about myself watching myself fish. So I use a GoPro. There's a pole thing called a Yolotech. You can stick it right in your nav port on the back, and it actually will power a USB. And then I can set a GoPro on the top and run it the whole trip. So I'm not worrying about turning it on. It takes a lot more time to edit it later. It does. But I can run the whole thing and I can catch every hook set, every kid catching stuff, and I usually will edit those in the winter. Yeah, I'm almost done. And so the thing I learned most about watching myself is how long it took me to get from getting a hook off to getting the hook back in the water, so I had to improve on that. And then the other part was just where I was. Because when I'm spinning around, sometimes even though I may be marking fish, I'm not marking fish, I want to get the fish in the boat and I'm still trolling, so I'm right off that. And so if I can kind of look at the video, I'm like, what was I doing? What was different? What was the change? And then all of a sudden I see I got hit right when the wake boat went like this, and I'm going, well, that's what was making it happen. I need to play with my poles a little bit or something.
Do you feel like your planer boards make a difference when walleye fishing in shallow water?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I catch a lot on planer boards in shallower water. At Deer Creek, because I'm going 30 feet, it's about 6s. But I'll turn the time over to Dave, and he'll kind of talk to you about the different planer boards and stuff. And then I'm more than willing to let you look at my stuff that I kind of spread out everywhere I was talking.
Yeah, in theory, a planer board's a great idea to, and I heard it pitch first, that especially like a Willard or if the water's shallow, when you pass over the walleye, they'll get spooked and move off to the side. I really haven't found that to be the case with Willard, because I've got just as many right under the boat as I do when I'm using planer boards. I usually am using planer boards for the purpose of, I've got 3 or 4 people on board my boat, and there's only so many lines you can have out. But if I'm sitting at the front of my boat driving, or with the trolling motor sitting in front, I can put out planer boards on both sides and be 10 or 15 feet away from the boat, and then I'm not going to foul up the guys that are fishing behind the boat. So there's various designs on them. I've got a couple here. In fact, I've got some here. These are straight off the shelf out here, Shield stock sleeves. They've got designs, and like Badger mentioned, you can rig them up with flag, and you can rig them so, on most of these kits, you can rig them so that the flag is up, and when the fish hits, the flag goes down. Or if you want to, you can rig it so the flag is down, and when a fish hits, the flag comes up. They're out there on the shelf, take a look if you want. This is manufactured by Church Tackle. This is mine. I had it rigged with the flag and everything, but I found that when I was pulling in a fish, sometimes I'd have to get to the point and get the line off, get the other line off, and I was starting to drop fish because of dealing with it. I really like this design. The line comes down, well actually it comes down this way because this is a right board. So the boat's over here, line comes down, actually it hooks in through here, you pinch it in, and then if you lift this up, you take a look, it's spring loaded. So you can put the line through that. So now, if you get a good hit or a wave pulls your line out of the pinch, it's gonna slide down your line. You're not gonna leave it floating somewhere. It slides down the line. If you're bottom bouncing, great, it's gonna hit the bottom bouncer and that's where it's gonna stay. If you're trolling a crankbait or a jig along the bottom, then I usually come up a foot or two above that and put a little teeny split shot in, wrap the line around it once and then pinch it shut so that it's a stop. And that's for the point, because I don't want, if I've got a fish on a jig or a fish on a crankbait, I don't want this coming down, smacking the fish and knocking it off. But I use them, again, I use them quite a bit. Mostly when I've got extra people on the boat, so that I can get more lines in the water and not interfere with each other. But I like to use them as well sometimes in really, well, in other situations. I love these for kokanee fishing. Again, there will be a couple of guys usually on the boat. There's usually 2 downriggers. So we got a couple of guys using downriggers. And I can be up at the front of my boat and fish these, so my guests get to use my downriggers and I get to use these. And what I'll do is, we were talking about the little slide. Yeah, we can pass this around, but I buy these. You can find them online if you can't find them in the stores. So the line goes through this, so it slides on the line, then there's swivel, then and for kokanee, then probably about 4 feet of line. Then the dodger and the squid or whatever bait you're using, so that you get some action, because off of this, you're gonna hang the weight, and you can put whatever, a half ounce, 1 ounce, whatever, get it down there, depends on how deep you want it to go. And you just have to experiment a little bit to see if you're getting hits. But I've caught fish on this, kokanee fishing, on strawberry and on the gorge, doing great. And the other thing that I try to do when I'm using a planer board, I really like to use bottom bouncers at Willard on a planer board off to the side. At Deer Creek, when I'm using a worm harness, you won't see when the perch hit and steal your worm. So I sometimes find that I reel it in and I've been robbed, and I don't know how long I've been wasting my time. So what I often do in those situations is use something that I know is going to work, but doesn't require the night crawler. I've had really good success. In fact, we caught some the other night with a fairly heavy jig with a light swim bait on it, so that it would just drag along the bottom, slowly along the bottom. And the type of jig I was using actually has like an upturned metal, it's like a stand-up jig, designed to be a stand-up jig so that the weight will pull it forward. Well, it's almost like a boat prow on the front of it as it's dragging along the bottom. So you'll avoid a lot of snags that way. And the west side of Deer Creek is not usually a big problem with that anyway. So I'd be dragging that along the bottom. So that can stay out there, and if I miss a hookup, it can stay. But I can drag that out on a planer board and know that a perch isn't going to steal that because it's a really sturdy swim bait, and I'm not going to lose my gear. I'm not going to lose the water. I'm going to be dragging it there up. I was told only bring about 5 minutes into my boat. I think I've covered the things that you need to. They're very basic. They're a lot of fun to use. I have found though, like on mine, if it's windy and choppy, you'll be able to, the pole, and my pole is sort of like his, not quite a parabolic, but it's a fast action, so the tip of it will be moving, and if you got a lot of wave chop and you're dragging a side planer board, you get a little bit of action. The theory behind this one is if you set it just right, when a walleye hits it, or a wiper, because wipers take off like a freight train. Good size, if a good sized fish hits this, it's going to pull the line. It's going to pull the line out of the grip. And so as soon as that happens and it starts sliding down, you may have a hookup, check it. You got to reset anyway. But if it doesn't, the back end of this is going to get pulled under. If the fish doesn't pull it free, you can still watch this and see that it's getting yanked under, and the tip of my pole will give a lot more action, even if it's in a semi-choppy situation. If it's real choppy, I don't bother with this because it usually is all the time popping free just because of huge waves. I can pass that around if anybody wants to see them, but there's really not much to it. I'll just put it up here. By the way, it's on the hat, and if anybody wants to buy a RMA hat, we have them. And we're going to turn the time over to Pat, who's the fishing manager here. He's going to talk about Downriggers. Next month's meeting is kokanee. So we will be talking about Downriggers as well, but he's got some examples here that this is what they stock here and have available. So Pat, thank you.
So for the majority of what you guys are doing, it seems like it's more oriented towards walleye fishing, it seems like. Whereas it seems like Downriggers are kind of somewhat neglected when walleye fishing is mentioned, but you can still run them. I know a lot of our guys will go out and they'll run just cranks on these guys. If you're fishing shallower water, Downriggers might be a good option for you. Just the cranks like he was showing, like a lot of the ones he has are really good. Your size 7s, flicker minnows and stuff like that can be a really good option. But right now, I guess more oriented for kokanee than anything else. Downriggers are, you can long line, you can run lead core, it works. Not saying you can't catch fish that way, but to me it's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more accurate. I don't know how keen some fish are to accuracy down to the depth, to the thermal. They can be, I don't know, maybe it's just most other people's brains behind it. But really for Downriggers, you have two different kinds. So your first, your manual, most people run these guys. Then next is going to be your electric Downriggers. Really only difference between them is just retrieve, drop and then retrieve. For more kokanee guys, or if you're going to be doing more trout oriented fishing, I think me personally, I run a manual. You're not doing a whole lot of 100-foot drops for comparing to lake trout. If you're running lake trout, I'd 100% recommend getting into one of the electric guys. It just makes it so much easier when you're dropping down a 10, 12 pound weight and you're dropping it down 100 feet, coming back up, back down, back up. So an electric guy might be a better option for you guys, where as going with the manual might be a better option for you trout guys. It's just going to be a little bit more, I guess, cost friendly.
What's the difference between the base model and the I'm just $400 difference? So
Sure. Between the two electrics. So when you jump into this new guy, this is, I guess, one of the more expensive ones in the market. It might actually be the most expensive. So the Optimum, really all it is, it has everything that this guy has: auto drop, auto pull up. But really, I guess what you're paying for are the features. If you have it's all part of Hummingbird's networking system. So if you do have one of the Hummingbirds that's networkable, you can do like bottom trackers. So for the guys that are doing big blades out of Flaming Gorge and stuff like that, that want to you're trying to maintain 2 feet off the bottom. Some guys even tell you a foot, like half a foot. You have a lot of control on these guys because this will connect to the transducer and it'll keep your weight right next to wherever you want it.
Yeah, actually pop it up and down automatically.
That is cool. Okay.
A lot of guys for kokanee too. I'm not saying you can't use these guys for kokanee. You can 100% use them. A lot of the guys, Kokanee Kid, a bunch of the other guys run them. It's actually really nice. There's been times we've gone out and just by being able to fluctuate, because it'll intermittently fluctuate depths. So if you want to go from 20 to 22 back to 20, you can run it that way. And there's times where just having a little bit of action caused by the depth of the actual Downrigger ball.
Those pretty easy program for that stuff?
Super easy, yeah. All you do is plug in. If you don't have a fish finder, don't have a Hummingbird fish finder, they offer a transducer you can mount onto your boat to these guys. It's like $125. So you can run one of those guys. More popular than the Magnums. We sell way more of these than we do almost anything else, it feels like. And all pretty much at Cannon's lineup, you have Unitrol 10, a Magnum 5. You have a number. You have a 5 or a 10. Only difference is 5s are going to be coming with just a straight boom pole on there. It's not adjustable. It's not telescopic. So for a lot of guys, and their boats were mostly pedestal-oriented guys that are putting on a pedestal on the deck. You'd want to jump into one of the 10s. 10s are going to come with the adjustable boom where you can pull it back out, so you get a little bit further away. Those will be really the only difference. And then I guess the next difference is you get a swiveling base on there. So you're going to angle it left, right, wherever you want it, whatever works best for you guys. If you're running multiple lines, multiple Downriggers, you can run your first two as like a 5 just stationary to the back. But if you're running on your outside guys, I'd highly recommend getting a tent of some sort, because you can pull those lines out further, or your booms out further, and you can swivel it to wherever you want on there. Super simple. I would say if you're doing more travel-oriented stuff, these unitrolls are really hard to beat. Get a 10, because if you plan on running multiple downriggers, run the 10. You can get the 5, you got the 5 as well.
I have two of those small ones on my boat. What I find is I have the mounts, but the mounts are too big for me.
Sure.
They make going on that rotate.
So being baseball, so they have one mount on there, so it's pretty universal, so it'll work on all these guys. It's the same one that comes with any of the 10 series. It's all universal, and they're going to go right under your quick detach, or right under your quick detach blade.
I don't know if I have that one or the one smaller than that, but the one that I have, it doesn't mount to it.
So it's like, it just sits on there?
It doesn't fit, so I'm in the process of making a plate, a custom plate.
Sure.
Yeah, between, but I'd rather just get them on there.
We have them. We have the swiveling bases here if you want to see it. But they're all universal. It's pretty much a one size fits all. It'll fit under regular quick detach. We do something that they're $49 or something like that. Next thing on downriggers is you can spend all your money on the downriggers, but I would recommend putting allotting a little bit of money into the accessories just to make your life easy. Really the 3 big ones that come to mind for me are first going to be just a retrieval system of some sort. If you're doing smaller stuff, you don't really need one, but if you're running those big 10, 12-pound weights on the very bottom of them, having to, especially with these boom poles where if they're stuck out, having to reach over and try to grab it can be a pain. So all these do is mount to the side of your downrigger. Grab that. Mount to the side of your downrigger, you can pull a little tab, little piece of that rope right there, pull it in, and pull that weight towards you. So if you're changing out weights, or if you need to put your clip back on, you can run it that way. Those are worth their weight in gold in my opinion, especially if you do like trout fishing. Oh, you can fabricate your own as well too. A lot of guys can do that. A lot of guys will run that. Just a pulley system is all it is really. Next thing, which I find to be probably the most important part, is in your actual clip. The cannon clips, in my opinion, are a hunk of junk. I'm not saying to throw them away because it's always nice to have extras. But we've done really well in advances. So they have different tensions on these clips. You can get light, medium light. Medium light's kind of your happy medium between the bunch. If you're doing like light poking stuff, bluebird days where they're barely biting, a light tension clip would be a little bit better. These vamps ones, this will be what connects to the very bottom of your downrigger weight and connects to your main line.
One problem that I have, maybe campaign, is like when I go to strawberry or Schofield and I get a lot of those cuts that don't really 5 inch long, I'll pull my line and check it and I'll have a fish on, but it doesn't release and it doesn't mess with the ball. So I have no idea if there's a fish on it. If I could so you're just dragging it.
Sure, so it's not pulling off your actual clip itself?
Yeah.
That's the only downside. You can mess around because it's hard, because I wish there was that I found. I haven't been able to find one yet. Most of the other guys haven't either. A clip that's between a medium light and a light. Because if you run a light, you have the chance of it just popping off even more if you start getting any type of wind or anything like that. But you run a medium light, there's a lot of times, like even for kokanee, sometimes you get those soft bite days. You have to rip the rod first and then reel up your slack really quick so you don't pendulum that dodger to.
Well, because I went from using the jet divers until I could afford downriggers. And then I went to downriggers, but then I have that issue, so I went back to the jet divers for when I'm fishing places like that. That way I know when I'm fishing.
I would try, this actually might even alleviate, because it all depends on line diameter. So for a braided line, it's going to be coarse, so it's not going to be as slick as, say, a monofilament or fluorocarbon, so it's not going to release as easy. So you might want to change out your clips, but try a different clip on there. You might have a different result, in my opinion. Those ones are my favorite, though. Last thing is, if you like to fish multiple bodies of water, specifically say Fish Lake, say Flaming Gorge, and then Deer Creek one day, I'd highly recommend getting one of these Terminator kits. Really all it is you have on all your downriggers, you have a stainless steel cable in there. All it is, instead of you having to go out and buy a crimping kit in order to put it to a swivel at the very bottom and to put it onto your actual downrigger weight, all you'll do is you'll go ahead, wrap your line inside of this little contraption right here, put it on the actual swivel, the snaps that come in the inside of there, and you're done. So you don't have to do anything crimping, nothing like that. Let's just say Flaming Gorge, you're going to run a 12 to 14 pound ball because you get a lot of usually out there, it's always windy, so it's a lot nicer to have a little bit heavier weight out there. And then if you're on a strawberry, you're going to be running like a 6 or an 8 pound. So it's nice to be able to change them out without having to take off the crimp, pull it apart, re-crimp the next, but you can have all your downrigger balls already ready. So kind of like a quick release system. Any questions?
I'm just curious, you did mention at the beginning, some folks use them for walleye. Very common to use downriggers for walleye?
It can, In Utah, I don't think as much. I'm sure there's guys that use it mostly in the Midwest. I know a lot of our Fargo guys run a ton of the Scotty Downriggers out there because just trolling. If you're like 15 feet or less, they have their little techniques that they'll run. But they'll trail the flicker shots out there for sure, just off the Downrigger. I guess you can be a little bit more. It's pretty flat out there for the most part,
Yeah,
so you can
very
maintain your bottom, I guess, depth a lot.
I mean, my only fear would be hanging up, you know,
Yeah.
being so close to the bottom. I don't know if I want to trust it or
I was
take the
going to
risk.
talk about something on that. Yeah, actually, if I may.
Go ahead.
I have seen people, yes, it's a good tool, it can be used for walleye. We found, Skip and I were fishing one time at Lake Powell, and as we were cruising along a certain mile marker, which will go unnamed, we found a shelf. It's back down about 40 feet. And he said, let's use the Downriggers. It was a good steady shelf for about 150 yards. And we dropped the Downriggers down to about 30 feet, simply pulling a worm harness. No weight, no nothing, but it was hooked to the Downrigger. And we killed the walleye off that shelf. And so it was just a good way of controlling the depth. Like a lot of guys, when somebody says, hey, I got a suggestion, it's usually because there's a disaster story behind it. I was kokanee fishing with Skip and his brother at Flaming Gorge. We've been picking up a lot. I have like the infant brother of the manual one, called a sport troll. Very basic, really basic. And I only use a 4-pound weight, because if you're manually cranking it up, I don't want to crank up a 10-pound weight or a 12-pound weight. And with a 4-pound weight, back to one of the other topics, is if you have a parabolic pole, a fiberglass pole on a 4-pound weight, and a walleye hits it and it doesn't pull out of your clip, or any fish hits it and doesn't pull out of your clip, that pole is going to start moving. There's not that much weight on that ball that it's not going to move. So you can tell that way too, yank it out. So I like a 4-pound, but that's me. It's like religion. Everybody has their, the one true way of doing it, whether it's a 10-pound weight or not. Anyway, we're on Flaming Gorge. Skip says, let's go over there. So we start over this direction. And I'm not paying close enough attention to the transducer on the front of my boat, to the sonar. And all of a sudden, there's a pinnacle. The wire cable coming down terminated into that kit with the ball and the gear off of the ball. We hung up, and before I could do a thing, it stripped all the cable, and I lost the cable, the terminator, I lost everything. Well, I went on an Alaskan fishing trip, and the boats up there all use a snubber. So what happens is, instead of hooking the weight to the ball, the terminator kit to the terminator, the cable comes down, and usually you hook the ball, you hook a rubber snubber, then the ball goes here. And I've started using this exclusively now. So if I get in trouble, and if I get caught up with something, I'm going to lose the ball, but it won't strip everything else off, I hope. But just a suggestion. So I'm often using, like I say, the weight above, and then I'll have the clip for the line above this, just barely above this. On Lake Erie, they bottom bounce with a snubber and the weight on the bottom, and they'll go along and actually hit, drag along the bottom. It's featureless. There's not a lot of anything to snag up. And it keeps their gear at the bottom. It keeps the lure at the bottom. I've seen guys using downriggers on Willard, which surprised the heck out of me, until I realized that what they're doing is only going down like maybe 8 or 10 feet and cruising around the 15 or 20 foot section, pulling cranks. So they know they're where they want to be. It really surprised me when I seen guys using, again, like I say, on Willard, which is so flat and featureless. I've never seen it on Utah Lake. Don't think I ever will. But anyway, so that was my painful lesson learned, and you might want to consider using a snubber and putting the ball at the bottom, just to help protect yourself. Because we ended up running into...
What if we reverse that just as an idea? Because I did it once. I went from braid, I ran an 80-pound mono.
Right.
On my, on a cheap manual, when I went to, Fucking Gorge. And that way, if it gets snagged up, it just breaks the 80-pound test.
Yeah.
Is that recommended or no?
They actually make a special mono cable for these.
Okay.
And the nice thing about the mono cable is it doesn't sing. If you've noticed when you're pulling a downrigger and you've got that steel cable, you get that humming, singing sound. I don't think it scares the fish away. I haven't noticed that to be the case, but the mono doesn't sing. But
What pound test is it?
that was an expensive day to buy the cable. We ended up going into the Sportsman's that was in Rock Springs. So we had to buy the cable. We bought that Terminator kit that he was telling you about. Awesome, it's a great kit. Had to re-rig, buy weights, do the whole thing. So now I always have a snubber and I always have an extra 4-pound weight with me. So anyway, I think that's about it for tonight. So Badger, do you want to talk about fishing reports and again for the hookup? I don't know if maybe we're thinking about trying to do something on the 25th with as a group.
As far as fishing reports, I really appreciate people sending in stuff, and I'm really sorry we did not get a newsletter out this past month. So I wasn't at the last meeting, and as far as the presentation that happened last month, we didn't get that up online yet. So this next newsletter will be jam-packed with some information. Also, these are the months that I like to fish instead of talking about fishing, so I was out fishing a lot more. But we'll get that newsletter out to you guys. But does anybody have a fishing report that they want to share with anybody?
Starvation was good last week.
Was it? You went to Starvation? What part were you fishing?
We fished on the other side of the bridge and in Downriggers.
Starvation.
Yeah, found walleye in both places. Big rainbows.
So, what were you using?
Swim baits and just a moon eye with a night crawler on
I go up there and do some night fishing. Yeah.
I'll say they're catching kind of white bass still. I can tell they ain't getting a lot of pike in the river still.
I've seen some cool videos of the pike just swimming by.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying you caught.
Yeah, we got 340 white bass 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
We were just giving them to people because you have a lot of people that want to eat. They were having trouble catching them. Number 2, little blue foxtail. Silver spinners were great right now for them.
Nice. Place to take kids if you got catching that many.
Yep.
Kokanee been kind of slow up on strawberry.
Has it?
Starting to pick up though. Most of the boats are in Renegade.
What was the water temperature? Did you know?
Shoot, I have to remember. It was 48 or
It's still pretty cold.
yeah. And I was catching them at 14 feet.
Oh well.
14 to 20 feet. But it's been slow. So I know Paul Phillips up there. He's
I was trying to decide whether it was going to Starvation or
it's picking up.
Strawberry.
It is picking up. So, and I'm still trying to learn walleye at Deer Creek and hit and miss for me. But I'm going to go to some of your areas here.
I've been hearing really good things in the last week or two about walleye at Willard. And if you are bottom bouncing at Willard, the southwest corner, you'll usually see some boats down there, and then over by the lamp pole, if you know where that is. Can we pull up the map? But I've heard that the bite is back at Willard. We tried fishing. We went up there when it was really cold and stayed until dark because we had a report of a guy that had been night fishing until about 10 o'clock at night and picked up a bunch of walleye right in front of the marina area. And we tried it and didn't do much. We went back June 1st and found out you don't do that at night at Willard. Bugs are insane. As soon as the sun goes down, it's horrible. Okay, the southwest corner, if you can see, there used to be a road, an old stream bed, and I think there was a road that leads on up through. That road bed area is usually really good. Right at this bend is a light pole up on the top. So in this area, last time we were up with Brady, it was about in this area here that we were trolling, and we were probably 50 yards from shore, and it was about 17 feet deep. And again, he was most of the success came off of a white swim bait on a fairly heavy jig, dragging the bottom as we were moving along at about 0.7, 0.8. And again, 0.9 is a great speed for doing any of this. 0.9 seems to be that magic speed. That's where most guys start, and then try to go a little faster, and if that doesn't do it, try to go a little slower and see if you can survive. But yeah, no, anyway, I've heard good things about that, but I haven't been there myself personally in the last 2 weeks because we've been going to Deer Creek and we've been finding walleye there.
And how would you rate Deer Creek right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
Consistent.
So I would probably give it like a 6, maybe. I mean, the areas that Badger showed you was where we were catching walleye the other night as it started to get dusk. Along that shore up there, that same area along the shoreline, if you like crappie fishing, we haven't found them yet, but along that shoreline, in past years, we've flipped little crappie jigs to shore and slowly trolled along and caught lots of black crappie.
Wilbur's fishing pretty good for the last few weeks.
Okay.
We went out there a couple times. It took me a minute to figure out my planer boards, because I haven't really used them that much. I did put the flag on, which helped us out quite a bit. The wipers hit and your planer, this.
Yeah, it disappears.
The walleye hit and your planer goes, it's 5 seconds of fury, and then, you have to notice it's back 10 feet. But I know a lot of guys have been fishing it. I haven't had my boat for the last week, so I haven't been out there because we put it in fun ground. But, yeah, so there's an island out there, out of the South Marina, not too far out.
Right.
And everyone's like, where's that one at? And I'm like, you see those 30 boats?
Look for the
That's
buoy.
that's the island. Yeah, right now there's buoy there.
There's
so it's shallow.
a warning buoy.
Yeah, but you also see a lot of boats out there. But we were trolling crankbaits, and we used lead line a little bit with worm harnesses. And we were trolling flicker shad. We were doing about 1.9, and that was producing.
Yeah, the wipers like a lot faster.
Yeah, well, we were catching a lot of walleye.
Oh,
Yeah,
were you too?
that's a good speed for cracks
With
for
cranks.
walleye too. Yeah.
Yeah, we came in the first day, and it was humbling because lots of guys there with lots of walleye, and I'm like, we just didn't really pick up a few, but it wasn't that great. And so we changed a few things up, went back out the next day, and we did fairly well. I know a lot of guys have. It's not.
What's the best speed of roller for walleye patrolling cranks?
We were
I don't know
doing.
as many cranks.
We were 1.92. I know some guys are pulling 2.2.
If you're pulling cranks, that's probably target. Yeah.
Wipers will get real fast if you're interested in wipers. They'll get real fast. Walleye way better even, but wipers are fun to catch.
Yeah.
But I know same thing. I mean, I'm not no expert on it, but same thing with bottom bouncers. Slow way down. If you're fishing bottom bouncers, but the light hole is pretty well known there.
Right.
As far as like a lot of guys will use that as a point. It's hard to miss when you know the fact what's in that hole. So yeah, so it's fishing pretty good week.
But there's a lot of times we find fish out in the middle, away from all of these places. Yay, it's a surprise, but they're in the middle of nowhere in this big featureless bathtub, and for some reason there's a school of walleye.
And people kind of congregate in the same areas just because there's no real landmarks anywhere else so people kind of like gravitate towards landmarks, I think, but you can pretty much catch them everywhere. If you're trolling.
Yeah, the island's always a big one.
Yeah.
And then Freeway Bay, which the freeway, we're right there.
Right here.
I started off in Freeway Bay. I went out by myself, I think, before we went out. I did. And I started off in Freeway Bay because I didn't want to deal with 35 other boats by the island. And so I'm in Freeway Bay, and I picked up fish in there too. But there was definitely more when I moved. But I picked up some walleye, and a couple of them was good.
Okay. If you're not getting our emails, please give us your name and email address. I did talk to Ben Allen, and let's get together right after. You can text him, and he will then set up a call. If the call comes in and he doesn't recognize the number, he's like me, I don't answer.
Okay, perfect.
And when I tried to leave him a message, his voicemail was full, so. Yeah, you can actually grab the rubber band.
He's like, I didn't buy the other ones.
I'm with you, I don't buy.
Not worth it.
I'm with you.
I have so many problems with stuff that doesn't work.
What are the smaller ones that are, I don't know what they're called, they're like the stick, the butter mounts with the different style.
I'm sorry?
What about the other ones, the shorter ones?
Oh, yeah, like the,
Like a stick on it?
there's not, any kind of weight that gets you down is good. I like, what I use is, it's like really, it's like a pencil weight, but it's sort of like that, but it ends there. It just has the loop. And then I put it on this, and then it's on my line, so when a fish hits it, it slides. The fish doesn't feel the full 2 ounce or 3 ounce bottom bouncer weight as it starts to run. It just slides up the line a little bit. So I like that personally. But I use, I'll have lines with this on it and lines with this on it. When I'm fishing, usually both of them. Although I hate that style too. Did everybody get a raffle ticket? What's your name?
I'm Noah.
Noah?
Yeah.
Would you draw the tickets for us? Bring your ticket and keep it.
Yeah, you're still in it. You're still in
You're
it.
still in it.
And we'll do 10, because if we divide this up, we'll be here forever.
Badgers?
Oh, yeah. I already paid for those.
All right, so Noah, all you need to do is just read off the last 3 numbers probably.
Okay.
So stir them up. Let me get my ticket out. So what we've got, again, thank you Shields. They've given us some lures along with some gift cards.
So I think they're 20. Let's do a lure and a gift card.
Yeah, I mean, Lord, as I said, just like that. I love Jake's. These guys will catch trout. These guys, we've caught kokanee trolling top fast at the gorge. Little kokanee, like deer legs, but they were still fun to catch. So yeah, it's really nice that they provide some of these things for us. All right, go ahead.
Okay. 986.
986. Awesome.
Hey.
So take a pick.
Uh, 981.
All right, come and take your pick. Thanks, Noah.
Yeah.
979.
979.
All right.
Work.
It worked, yeah, that's, you told me.
978.
Hey.
All right.
Great.
Well, when we have a crowd that's this small, odds are in your favor.
985. Oh, that was me.
Hey, that's you?
There you go.
There you go. Wait, let me make sure. Okay.
Now, a fisherman wouldn't lie.
983.
Okay.
987.
See, now that's good luck. You guys are going to go up now. You just had good luck, both of you.
I always have some luck when I would.
976.
That's probably something.
976. That's got to be Dell. A Jake's spoon or a little spinner?
We went to the cover with the fly fish, and sucked, so we went down.
Okay, 980.
Me and him.
You need to pick one, Dell.
sitting on a rock.
That's a gift card that goes with
We did
it.
the whole winter thing and going to water planes.
Okay, all right.
The big time.
So, yeah, one of
I
you.
don't know what they were every other day.
977.
977. All right.
Hey.
Those Jakes really do work. Thank you. All right, hey everybody, thank you for coming. Again, next month, it will be talking kokanee.
Hook up. if anybody wants somebody on their boat or wants to go on a boat with somebody, if you want to meet in the front, you can kind of hook up with some guys who might be going fishing, and it's up to the captain when they go. And just as a club kind of like courtesy, usually if you go with somebody, you split gas, you split costs. So just offer that up if you're in the ride along.
Okay,
Okay?
Thank you.
see y'all next
Yeah.
time. Well, we've got, I've got a buddy.
I'm in Taylor.
He loves fishing. He's in fishing every time we go up to Deer Creek.
I tend to go there more
If
often.
you hit a point early in the year,
I kind of split my time.
bass aren't turned on, walleye aren't really turned on yet, so we're right in control. Just put a gold jigs on. Just kind of no way, just get it. So it's probably like I'm good on the water, but I'm welcome behind the boat. Just catch those planters all day.
Well, I pretty much just use it like that's all I use. But pulling it up there, in case, you know, $100.
Just doing it, yeah, for the
Really good luck with tracking.
That's interesting, that's consistently.
When we're on Wheeler, I usually do try to use
Left console.
because
Not the side
it
console.
gives me a wider.
I pulled out the whole up console. I actually like that.
Now I'm pulling lures. If I'm on either side of me, I've got probably a 40-foot path where I've got, lures right under the boat, 15 or 20 feet on either side of the boat. So it just gives me a little more
Yeah, that's
chance.
one thing, like,
If I start finding, if I walleye.
As long as I know it's common, I get rid of.
So we sort of
Though, it's fine.
know where we are. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what's your name? Robert Badger. So let me get your.
Not so much. I haven't. I catch just as many right under the boat as I do off to the side. And again, if you're running, like a worm,
That's what I got.
you took me.
Maybe be fired, maybe
So it's one of those things where every few, every 10 minutes,
I am just gonna judge your contract. You think I got all this free stuff
bottom bouncing is probably the best way to find them. We often will do is start bottom bouncing, find where they are, and if you can pass, now
Figure out what I just barely got it with water.
which I find great. Then you've got the record feature. I love that. Every time I'm bottom bouncing, I'm using just on the outside case, because if we're controlling the line and we pick up walleye, go down a little bit, turn it around, click start, and it'll keep you on that same line. You get another walleye, and just stop. Yeah, stop at that point and catch it. And start catching jigs and pulling jigs. I really like the Yamamoto curly tail. And if you find the color 176, is usually
Figure out when I go out. Do you
There's
go
a
out
double
with
tail.
though?
I like double tail because then they don't give you line twist as much. But I really have really good luck with that subtle color of like grayish. It's called the 176. But I've also had
I'll have to
fluorescent.
text once I figure things out.
Chartreuse
Because I just started a new job this year, so I've been kind
yellow.
of I'm a software
I've got
developer.
walleye on the
Yeah, so I've been.
Yeah,
good talking to you.
And I jig, I like the net head jigs too, because that stands out. The other.
Yeah, you can do it.
So, thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna try it tomorrow.
All right, good luck. Where are you headed?
We should be able to.
Oh, yeah.
And
go this
You
morning.
won't be dealing with the wakeboard trips from backups, which is nice. Personally, I really like night fishing, I really like, so I go up,
I can bend over.
I fish for walleye, fish for crappie, and then go on over and take my guests to wherever I'm taking, and we fish for trout. And then we come home at dark. I mean, it's like, I'm back at my house usually by about 1 in the morning. Kind of a late night.
All
right, thanks for your, sure.
Okay, I'm ready for your
Craig, I'm
crack.
really sorry, do you have your phone?
That's pretty well.
Yeah, let me give you his number and you can text.
So, it's got all those.
Sorry. No, this is great, and his comment was,
Ben Allen.
Ben Allen.
God, his presentation was excellent.
Yeah,
I watched it 3
he's
times.
super. What I told him is, hey, there's a fellow who's going to be coming up from Cash here, first time he's doing this, he has some questions, okay, give me your phone number, he's absolutely fine. Good to have more coverage, you may want to send me a text, because I don't usually answer, so. And I know my voicemail is full. All right, so Ben is 801.
I'm not bad, but I don't like these.
865. 0415. That back.
And I took it.
It'll work. 865.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. Don't tell anybody you're not.
I think,
He got more somebody, but probably George.
Sure, son.
Let's try.
Old phone number.
Is it?
Yeah.
Was it, were you doing it?
I don't know exactly what's going on.
Try doing it.
Yeah,
Sometimes
he's
it's
doing
zero.
the laptop.
But he does, I saw that his name was on it, I know him.
Yeah, so did George say it's okay then?
I think he got a hold of him and asked him, so.
Yeah.
It would be insane though, wouldn't he? I mean, he was on every tournament with me, I just don't get it.
And again,
There's
there's big money on the Starvation Classic. They might get pissy about it.
Why?
Because
Oh, they don't want to get outfished by a 14-year-old?
Yeah, because it's a rule, because it's a rule. And if there's a
I know,
rule,
I understand, I get there's a rule,
Yeah.
but why? We fish ice fishing tournaments that are like competitive and he will wipe people out.
I'm totally with you, I totally agree with you. I just know that some of the guys that run these really pretty big money tournaments, all it would take was a competitor going, that kid is
It's
not.
done really fast.
And they.
Oh, I get it, I'm sure that would be the
So this one says
plan.
about a minute.
But why does that rule exist? It's not like you're not signing your life away with a waiver.
You're paying, yeah.
Guaranteed,
you pay
and if
the-
I'm willing to put that money on the line for him, and
Exactly.
they better be willing to take it or
Exactly, I don't think that'll fair, but again, for this one,
yeah,
this one is not quite as serious, so I think you're great. And again, George is the guy that is running it, so he's good.
We'll go win this one and then they can't keep him out.
I gotta warn you, as soon as you win this, you're gonna be one of our guest speakers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so gird up your loins.
Because
So you were gonna, give me pointers about starvation, because I'm still learning starvation.
Yeah, okay.
nobody else cares. Well, it's like, I don't think anybody, like, there's one guy I know who cares
Good to
about.
see you,
like,
Doc.
everyone,
You bet,
but
you too.
Other than him.
Good luck, you guys, you go out there.
So it's kind of.
Thanks, yeah.
Make us proud of
Did
you.
you ever get this
Little.
video when I airdropped it to you?
We won't tell